Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to talk about the 1998 movie Sphere by director Barry Levinson. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis for Sphere?
Well, the story follows a group of scientists led by Dustin Hoffman who have been given the task of going to an underwater laboratory and studying what they believe to be an alien spacecraft. Inside the craft, they find a ginormous golden sphere, and a few of the scientists end up going inside the sphere and coming out with some strange powers.
This is a typical sci-fi movie, and it's quite an interesting opening as well, even on repeat viewings of the film.
We took this with SLS side-looking sonar. This is an aerodynamic fin longer than a football field, bigger than any known wingspan. This is the fuselage. Okay, this is ultra-high-res SLS bottom scan. Came in a week ago. There it is, buried under about 8 yards of coral.
Basically, he's told that he's there to see an alien craft, and you of course get Dustin Hoffman's sort of plain reaction to it.
Oh boy.
The film then introduces you to the rest of the characters, and you get to see that they're all professionals in their own background.
Yeah.
We have a biochemist to assess the physiology of the unknown life form. We have a mathematician, because that'll probably be our common language. And we have an astrophysicist to locate its place in the cosmos.
Led by a psychologist.
That's right.
So that's what the little green men are saying nowadays? Take me to your therapist?
Listen up.
And then we get a couple of improvised dialogue sequences where they kind of, some of them object to being there, and some of them are just blown away by the idea of what they're about to go and explore. And so as a viewer, you're also quite excited about going aboard this alien craft and trying to find out where it came from, why it's been sat at the bottom of the ocean all this time. And for me, the first time I watched this, it's sort of a year after Event Horizon. And I always imagine this as being sort of like an unofficial sequel to Event Horizon, because they both have central kind of spheric objects that kind of manipulate time and space. And so, of course, it's also a device that also in both movies plays with their characters' minds.
Yeah.
And it would also maybe explain why there was a corpse sat on the bridge of the ship in Sphere. It's Miller.
For me, this film comes from the Michael Crichton era of Hollywood. But the original story was written by Michael Crichton, and obviously he'd already gone on to successfully release Jurassic Park. Then I believe they gave him another chance by allowing him to release his other books like Congo, about talking apes, and obviously Sphere. But for me, when this film first came out, nothing drew me. I was just like with Gary, I'd just seen Event Horizon, and I believe Starship Troopers was out as well. And so for me, a sci-fi movie about a group of people going to the bottom of the ocean hasn't been very good since The Abyss.
Come on, you'd be nice this trip.
No.
And for these guys to do it, don't get me wrong, Samuel Jackson, Sharon Stone, Dustin Hoffman, Liev Schreiber, they're an all-star cast, but there's just something really boring about scientists explaining something to you which is pretty much unexplainable.
I don't know what a black hole is.
A black hole is a collapsed dead star that has so much gravity it acts like a huge vacuum cleaner, sucking everything into it. Light, interstellar dust, time.
Time?
It's possible, but not plausible.
It's more than probable. It's rudimentary astrophysics. We just haven't been able to fly into one and prove it.
Yeah, it's that claustrophobic feel again, where like in Event Horizon, you have outer space, there's nowhere to escape.
Yeah.
Like The Thing, you're trapped in Antarctic. Like The Abyss and like Sphere, you're trapped under the ocean. You can't just open an airlock, or you can't just jump to the surface because explosive decompression.
Yeah.
And so it is that sort of horror trope where they're trapped down there, and it does sort of lend itself into the horror genre where characters are start to killed off one by one, and just like any traditional trope of a horror movie, they kill off the African American woman first.
It's just the black guy always dies. Think about it, man. Unforgiven, Alien, Rocky IV, The Shining.
Star Trek II, Forrest Gump, Witness.
Annie Hall. Not Annie Hall.
The film then sort of builds up into what I always consider the most exciting part of the film, and that is when some of the characters have already had some interactions with the sphere, and they've already made the observation that it's not reflecting them, it's reflecting everything else but them. And I thought that was a really cool sequence. And again, it just gets your mind sort of flaring and asking questions. And then, of course, the computer starts to speak to them.
Yeah.
And that, for me, was the most exciting part. It reminds me of the movie Contact, where it's sort of like what would actually happen? How would the communications work? Would it be on such a very basic level? Or would it be really complicated? And if they are open to dialogue, then obviously they're not there to incite war.
Yeah.
So it kind of romanticizes the idea of making first contact with an alien species.
Friends, in the 8,000 years of recorded history, this is a first. You are now online with an alien intelligence.
And then, of course, having these scientists and psychologists there, you sort of get a deeper insight or an understanding into how it might go.
Yeah.
And, of course, Dustin Hoffman's makes the interpretation from the computer that what happens if he's angry.
That last part where he said, I am happy.
Well, don't you want Jerry to be happy, Norman?
Honestly,
Yeah, what's on your mind?
I would be happy if Jerry had no emotions whatsoever.
So,
What happens if Jerry gets mad?
A few problems I find is the film is set up like a book. You have these title cards coming up telling you about the discovery, the dropping to the ocean, and obviously going aboard the alien ship.
It gave it a bit more of a documentary style, as well as being like chapter marks from the book.
Well, for me it felt like chapter marks from the book. So each segment, I felt like I was being read a paragraph from the book. But the problem with that is, and obviously in the book, you expand one chapter for like 30 to 100 pages, where in the film, the segments are like 15 to 20 minutes long, and they try and shove as much as they can happening in that segment before you go to the next segment.
Barnes, this is Norman. I get no answer from Edmonds, and there's some strange noises. Something's going on.
Wanting to know more from that segment, but then are rushed into this next segment so something else could happen.
You have my notes, Beth. What do you want me to do?
And obviously, like Gary said, the computer starts to talk to them, and they start to have discussions with it. That sequence in itself is relatively quite short, because then all you have the action dramatic stuff happening of crew members being killed off and people being narrowed and funneled down.
Now, alert, emergency doors now activated. Now, alert, emergency doors now activated. Sector secured.
And then the questions start to arise of who has been in the sphere and who is now killing off other people with strange powers.
And if so, what?
Everything that we feel, everything that we think just happens. That's what happened to the astronauts.
It's really disappointing, this movie, on repeated viewings. It's a film that much left best in memory, because when you know all the answers that the question's posing, there's nothing else there. The actors kind of are almost not really responsive to everything that's going on. And you get scenes where you have the great Samuel Jackson, who's just kind of silent. The film's trying to convey this sense of paranoia as to who has been in the sphere and whether they can trust each other until they start trying to kill each other off. And it just feels empty. I know quite a few of the scenes were improvised, and a lot of it was rushed. The studio really wanted this film released, and test audiences reacted badly to the film as well, and so extra scenes had to be shot. The ending had to be reshot. The pacing of the film feels off. The characters feel really flat, especially after the midway point. For me, my favourite character of the movie is Liv Schreiber, and he's sort of the most energetic character. He's the one who's posing all these questions and is excited about everything.
You're kidding. This is the greatest scientific discovery since Copernicus. It's bigger than Copernicus. The idea that we're not alone, it'll change everything. We have physical evidence that there's extraterrestrial life. You don't want to see that?
Well, I gotta say, I resent this briefing very much.
Oh, Jesus.
It's funny you say that because, I mean, Liev Schreiber, obviously, the first time I ever saw him was as Cotton Weary from Scream. And from that point, it just seems like... I also loved him in Phantoms as well. He played an awesome part in that. And it just seems like his film career after Sphere seemed to get better and better. But Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stones, and, well, Samuel Jackson obviously kind of goes off, but Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone, they're kind of teetered. I sat waiting for Samuel Jackson just to swear.
Yeah.
Just to wake me up a bit, because obviously, like we said, there's just parts. He comes down and he says to people like, oh yeah, we're all going to die down here, and he explains to them why he believes they're all going to die. So they're like, oh, thanks for putting a downer on the moment.
We die down here, just as a matter of deductive logic, Norm.
You know, and then he goes off and he falls asleep. And he sleeps for like 2/3 of the film, and I'm like, okay, nobody's really going to question why he's asleep.
That's because he was off filming Jackie Brown on the weekends while he was shooting this movie.
And that's it. You know, you have that part where Liev Schreiber comes in and he's trying to wake him up. He's like, Harry, wake up. And Harry's just lying there. But he doesn't go and tell anybody.
No.
You know, it's not until later on that Dustin Hoffman comes across Harry and goes, you slept all the way through it. Well, didn't you notice he wasn't there? You were running around with fire extinguishers? Oh.
You know, you seem strangely detached given our predicament.
I don't know, Norman. With all your panic and running around, what have you accomplished?
You knew I was running around?
See, I really like Dustin Hoffman. I thought he was fantastic in Rain Man.
Yeah.
Also, same director as Sphere. And he was also brilliant in Outbreak. Outbreak was a fantastic film. And so I was excited to see him in this film because it was sort of lend a credence to the movie by having his name attached to it and sort of performances that he can give. However, he just kind of mumbles most of his lines and doesn't move his lips, and then you just, all of a sudden, it's all over.
You owe me.
I'll talk to him. We're going to be down there for 2 hours. You don't have to be around him. He idolizes you anyways, but I'll talk to him. I'll buy you dinner.
All right.
I'm sorry.
All right, your secret's safe with me. Come on. Get over it.
I can't believe this thing happens like a dream. Have you called your wife?
No.
Why not?
I wanted him to start doing Tai Chi like he did in Meet the Fuckers.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, come on, make me laugh or something. Sharon Stone. I'm a bit of a fan of Sharon Stone for some of the most obvious reasons. But she just kind of... I know her character was, she was mentally depressed, and there's a bit of a backstory with Dustin Hoffman's character. But even then, I wasn't really interested. I was just like... Do something, woman.
Yeah, Sharon Stone actually said in the making of it, she was like, I'd rather all these scenes get cut back, because she was like, I don't understand what impact it's going to have on this type of film. And they just rolled with it anyway, and they just like, well, we're just going to improvise these scenes. And it was sort of like hinting at this sort of backstory that they had, which would, have an impact when they're basically trying to kill each other because they don't know who they can trust. And so having that backstory would sort of make that more engaging. However, it just didn't have any impact at all.
I think obviously if you're a fan, if you like reading, then read the book of Sphere, because obviously you probably do get this whole backstory that allows you to feel for the characters. But in the film, she walks up and you realise there's a bit of past tension between her and Dustin Hoffman, and then they're buddies in the very next scene, laughing and joking. I'm like,
You don't find that a little strange? Huh?
Well, I guess it's just you and me, babe.
You and me, Beth?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to feel here? Samuel Jackson still sat there reading his book. Where's Liev Schreiber? Oh, he's dead. Shit.
He's on the barbecue. So the translation from the book, it's almost very faithful. However, the biggest trick that the book has is that when they're talking to the computer, they believe they're talking to the alien life form. Now, in the book, when you're reading it and you're given the code in order to decipher the text that's coming through, you can sort of make the translation yourself, which is time consuming, or you can carry on reading the book and just trust that the author is giving you the right code. And so when the revelation comes in the book that you've been duped into believing it's an alien life form and not one of the sleeping characters, it's a massive revelation, and then you can go back and check the code and go, it was wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas the movie just kind of very quickly glazes over it, and then you sort of get some of the spelling corrected, and so you could see what the sentences really were. And it's just, okay. It didn't really matter anything.
Yeah.
Because it just didn't go anywhere.
It builds up, obviously, like we said, spoilers, it builds up to reveal that the three main characters have been in the sphere and have been given these powers to be able to make their fears manifest.
And this is the really wild part. What he dreamed.
Happened?
It happened.
They have these powers to be able to pretty much do whatever the fuck they want, but they're so scared and put in one of the most scariest places on Earth, which is underneath the ocean, that obviously they start to manifest their fears. So Harry manifests the giant squid from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Sharon Stone manifests bombs around the place because she wants to blow the fucking facility up. And there's one segment that really annoys me. It's a segment where Queen Latifah, who I think pulls off an amazing role in this film. This is how bad this film is. She was brilliant. She has gone outside to reset the timer on their emergency submarine, and she gets surrounded by jellyfish.
Wow, so beautiful down here. So tranquil. Wow. Oh, this is beautiful. It's hard to believe we have a typhoon 1,000 feet above our heads. Hey, it's snowing down here.
It's a good sequence.
Good sequence. There's a fucking shitload of jellyfish, and it must be a really scary type of position to be in. But you're constantly cut back from her underneath the water to Liev Schreiber and the captain trying to talk her through to come back to the base. And then you cut to Dustin Hoffman, who's just kind of sat there looking up at the audio speaker. And then it cuts back to Queen Latifah, then it cuts back to them, then it cuts back to Dustin. And I'm like, Dustin, you're not even going to save her? You're not even going to do anything? I'm going to sit here and watch you sitting there?
He's the hero of the movie?
Is he the hero of the movie? It's just... Ultimately, the crew members end up getting killed off, and the three of them are left there. And then you spend the whole ending, such a confuddled ending where...
This ending is a mess. It edits the characters into loads of different positions, and the characters are looking around like, whoa, how did we get here? I'm just going to think that I was back there, and then whoop, then they're back there all of a sudden. So it's like time travel, transportation, because they're on a timer because the explosives are going to go off.
Yeah.
And
action
so you get this very forced and contrived action sequence, and it gets even more confusing when the characters can't even explain what's going on, so much so that it feels like you're not seeing the characters anymore, you're seeing the actors trying to understand what's going on, because they went on to say they didn't have a fucking clue what this ending was about. They were just like, hey, Barry, are we sure we're doing this? He's like, yep, I've got this in mind, this is how it's going to work. And you're just watching it, and it just doesn't make sense. It just feels like a very convoluted, over-the-top ending, just because the ending was so anticlimactic. Especially when you just watch this sphere just fly off, and it's like, there you go. That's the movie right there. Favourite scene, Iain?
My favourite scene out of this whole film is a sequence at the beginning where the four main characters have come aboard the underwater laboratory, and they're being pressurised in the little pressure room, and so a lot of helium is placed into the room, and all four of them are obviously just stood there having squeaky voices.
Oxygen is a corrosive gas in the same family as fluorine and chlorine. Hydrochloric acid, hydrofluoric acid. Essentially, that's why we're breathing helium down here, because oxygen at any level higher than 2.3 becomes toxic. Can you run that by me again, Ted? I don't speak balloon.
And it was just such a fun sequence. I know the film is supposed to be tense and a sci-fi thriller, but at that moment I felt good and happy.
Well, let me yell a big room.
All right, kiddies, cut it out.
Yeah. I think for me the most poignant and memorable moment in the film is the point where Samuel Jackson explains to Dustin Hoffman that they're all going to die down here.
Ted did figure it out. Time travel. And when we get back, we're going to tell everyone. how it's possible, how it's done, what the dangers are. But then why 50 years in the future, when this spacecraft encounters a black hole, does the computer call it an unknown entry event? Why don't they know? If they don't know, it means we never told anyone. And if we never told anyone, it means we never made it back.
And so that sort of realization that, oh shit, then yeah, there's no actual way of arguing against that unless you choose to forget it. Like I'm going to choose to forget this movie. You recommend the film, Iain?
I do, but I recommend it to people who have never seen it. If you've never seen Sphere, maybe get a copy, sit down, watch it. You'll be able to then say that you've watched it. As an alternative, read the book. I'm sure I haven't read it myself, but I'm sure the book, if it's anything like the film, is a far more enjoyable experience. If you've seen the film before and the only reason you'd watch it again is if you're a big fan. Otherwise, no.
No, it's not even worth watching it for the giant squid attack. You know why? Because you don't even see the fucking squid. I don't recommend Sphere. I would have if I'd not just rewatched it. It was a golden sort of nostalgic movie for me that I just sort of put there into that genre and enjoyed it as a first time experience. But rewatching it now, it is a really flat movie. The pacing is weak. The characters are weak. The set's good, the music's good, and some of the special effects are very good, but it's just not enough to hold your attention for the film's running time.
Yeah.
The first 40 minutes of the film or 30 minutes of the film is fantastic in building up all of the tension and suspense and excitement about what's the premise of the film is, and then it just falls apart. So I can't recommend Sphere now.
What's going on?
More of nothing.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
You had my notes, Beth. What do you want me to do?